Welcome to our weekly live broadcast with writers from the Denton Record-Chronicle, powered in part by the Denton Record-Chronicle and Classic of Denton.
Hey everybody, thank you very much for tuning in live here at DentonRadio.com. We are sitting down with one of the writers of the Denton Record-Chronicle, Mr. Brett Vito. Every Monday we get an update on all things Denton, either Denton business, Denton events, Denton sports, all that good stuff. Today we are talking Denton sports. Brett, what's been going on?
Well, we're getting closer to the school year, so there's actually quite a bit going on in the world of Denton sports from the high school level on up. And probably the most interesting thing going on here this week is the fact that the North Texas men's basketball team is in Italy. Now, if you follow college basketball, this is something you've probably heard of before. A lot of schools, you have an opportunity once every 4 years, you can elect to go overseas and play a series of games overseas against professional teams long before practice typically starts. And teams tend to time these things out to a specific season depending on what's going on. So if you've got a really good team coming back and you think it's going to help you maybe incorporate some of your new players, teams will do it then. Some teams will, maybe if you have a really young team and you feel you're going to have a lot of young guys that are going to play, maybe you go overseas and you play then. North Texas has never really done this before, but they elected to do this year. And their head coach, Grant McCaslin, credited the university in general and specifically Ren Baker, the athletic director, for helping them do this. And for North Texas this year, they are expected to be really good. If you remember back to last year, they did win the College Basketball Invitational, which is kind of like a second/third tier postseason tournament behind the NCAA and NIT. They bring most of their guys back, pretty much everybody back, and they've got a couple of young guys that they're or guys that sat out last year didn't play that they're going to incorporate into this team. So for the next 6, 7, 8 days, they're going to be playing games overseas. So we may get some results from those games, see how they did. And plus, it's just going to be a great experience for those guys that are, out there in Italy. So they left on Sunday. They've already landed. If you follow them on Twitter, Coach McCaslin and some of those guys have already posted, little videos or pictures of them out there in Italy. So that will be something to follow this week, either on social media, and hopefully we'll get some results to throw some things into the paper. It's more the benefit of it isn't so much the games you play. It's the fact that practice doesn't start till really October because the season doesn't start till later in the year. Well, now these guys are getting an extended period where they're able to practice with the coaching staff in a team setting together, which typically, with the way the NCAA schedule works, you wouldn't be able to do. So that's one thing that's going on this week. Cool. Another thing that's going on is high school and University of North Texas football practices are going on. If you've been following along, I've been reporting on UNT and what's going on in their preseason workouts that have kind of ramped up. North Texas had its first scrimmage on Saturday. Defense, was kind of an issue, especially late last year. They looked a little bit better. That was kind of one of those things we've been following along, just seeing some of these young guys develop. There's some young receivers that have really stepped up for them in the early part of fall practice, which will be, important for them this year. They don't open until September 1st against SMU at home, but you can kind of follow along with how they're progressing in the paper. Some of the high school teams have already started practice as well. It depends on if you had spring practice or you didn't. If you didn't have spring practice, you get to start a little earlier. If you elect to have spring practice, you start a little later. There's just a set amount of practices you're going to have. So the high school teams have gotten in there. We've had multiple reports in the paper on some of the teams that are up. And Geyer and Braswell open on Monday. So we'll have some additional coverage of them in the next few days as those teams continue to ramp up for their season. There's supposed to be a lot of good high school teams in town this year. Argyle opens up in the top 5 in the state in 4A. As far as the Dave Campbell's poll, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, it's a magazine that kind of covers the college and high school scene in the state. Geyer's also ranked pretty high, or it's Ryan. Ryan's also ranked pretty highly this year, so there's some good teams out there that are getting ready for their seasons. One team that has started its season is the North Texas women's soccer team, which is one of the preeminent powers in Conference USA and one of the best college programs in this town. They played a couple of times over the weekend. They lost to Oklahoma, and then they had a scoreless tie with SMU on Sunday night that only lasted a half until the rain cut loose, and they had to call that game. But they tied SMU for a half. Across town, TW has hired its new softball coach. Amber Barker comes in from Albany State. So that's one of TWU's top programs, programs that people pay a lot of attention to. Well, Barker comes in and takes over that program. So that's something to be interesting to see how, the team will progress under a new coach. And also, one thing I did skip on the UNT front and we've been talking about is the new end zone turf, and the new turf in general for the whole field has gone in over the summer. They took, if you might have seen it on the paper yesterday or on our website if you've been following along online. The new turf for the end zones has come in. That was the one thing they didn't have. They installed the turf in the summer. They were waiting for a specific custom order color for the end zones. That's actually going in this morning. I took a picture of and put a little story up last night about the end zone turf being in. Well, now it's in. It's being installed as we speak. We should have a picture up of that installation on our website here in a little bit, and that'll probably have a standalone photo of that in the paper tomorrow. But you'll be able to see what the new end zones look like at Apogee here in the next few days. And finally, on the youth sports front, kind of unusual, Gavin Lane, a 14-year-old from Argyle, is playing in the U.S. Amateur.
Whoa.
It's a big golf tournament. It's one of the preeminent amateur tournaments in the country. Some of the best amateur players in the country play in those things every year. And he's 14 years old, and he's going to play. And it starts on Monday. So he qualified. He got in. He's one of the best young golfers in the country. And he will be playing with a lot of the big-time players on a national level that are either guys that, are in college, went to college. I mean, I'm not a golf guy, but there's some pretty big-name guys that have played in the U.S. Amateur over the years. And so this little guy's going to have his opportunity to go out there and play against some of the best amateur players in the country. So that will start on Monday, and it'll just be a great experience for him, but it'll be interesting to see how he does.
That'll be cool. That'll be really fun to watch. Well, super, super cool. Brett, anything else we want to touch on before we wrap up?
No, I think that about covers about what's going on in town. It's just, start of the run-up to the football season, and be sure to keep in mind our football magazine will be coming out later this month. Get a lot of questions about when that's coming out. But, that will be right before the high school season starts, right before North Texas takes on SMU, working pretty hard on it. So that will be out a little bit later.
Awesome. Gotta love it. Guys, make sure you stay tuned to the Denton Record-Chronicle for all the updates on everything Denton sports, or, of course, following up at DentonRC.com. Tune in every Monday at 2 here at DentonRadio.com, where we bring you all the updates with the oracles of information themselves, the folks at the Denton Record-Chronicle. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Well, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out DentonRadio.com for new Denton artists and where they're playing next. While you're surfing the internet, make sure you check out our friends Classic of Denton at ClassicofDenton.com.